2B has arrived, and as has become tradition on my channel, I'm doing a full block punishment guide for the character on day 1. I've been spending a lot of time in the lab today, as you'd expect, and I think doing this for Soulcalibur is even harder than it is for Tekken, with all of the lethal hit conditions and things like that you need to look into. But we're not here so that I can just pat myself on the back, so what are my initial impressions of her overall block punishment? Well, I think that in terms of the impact she gets at each frame, her block punishment is solid, especially when she has her analysis points stacked, and we'll get into that in a minute. But in a way, surprisingly, she definitely has some troubles with moves that push back on block, as a lot of her punishers have kind of average to bad range. But without further ado, let's get into it. At 12 frames, 2B has a very generic AA. It does 18 damage and it's +0 on hit. +0 obviously isn't great, but there are a lot of extensions off of her AA to give you some mental frame advantage. 2B's BB is 14 frames, which is very nice for her poking and neutral game, and as a punish it gives 21 damage and -2 on hit, but you do have stronger options at 14 frames. 3KK gives you 1 less damage at 20, but +2 on hit, definitely making it worth it. But what you really want to do is 3KK hold, but only with a slight hold. I've decided to be a maverick and notate this with a lowercase k in brackets because there actually isn't a community agreed upon way to notate a slight hold, but you have to be careful because if you fully hold 3KK, it won't be natural on hit anymore. Anyway, with 26 damage, +4 on hit whilst forcing crouch, and an analysis point, this is most certainly her strongest 14 frame block punisher. I'll do a quick guide on 2B's analysis points sometime very soon, so I won't go too much into detail in this video on analysis points, just know that whenever you can get them, you want them. Which brings us pretty smoothly over to her 16 frame block punishment, starting with 4K, which is +4 on hit with 22 damage and 2 analysis points on hit, which is very nice. 4K will also lethal hit the opponent if you have 9 analysis points, allowing for huge combos. When 2B is on low health, you can immediately combo this into her self-destruct critical edge, and it does well over 100 damage for huge comeback potential. It does way more damage even than you could see there. If you're at a point in the match where analysis points don't seem important, or if you have analysis points fully stacked and you want to save them, you could opt to go for 4K hold, which does more damage at 26, and it also gives you a knockdown, potential ring out and wall splat for big combos. However, 4K doesn't have great range. The best option for 16 frame punishment for moves with some pushback is 66B, but even this can struggle to punish some moves with a lot of pushback, as you can see here. And finally at 16 frames, if you have a bar of meter, her critical edge is 16 frames, so you can cash out that meter for 75 damage and a knockdown. 2B also has very diverse 18 frame block punishment. If you have 2 full bars of meter, her 4A is a lethal hit launcher, so you have to keep in mind when you have your 2 bars of meter because it buffs your block punishment. At 16 frames, you also get access to 2B's 6B options. The second part of 6BK behaves exactly the same as 4K that we looked at a minute ago. You still get your +4 on hit and your 2 analysis points. It will still lethal hit if you have 9 analysis points, and you can still choose to use 6BK hold if you want the knockdown, the wall splat potential and the ring out potential. The final option is 6BB into stance, and it's going to depend on how real her stance pressure is going to be from here on whether you'd ever want to use this, because it seems to be pretty minus on hit, so we'll have to wait and see. At 20 frames, 2B gains access to her first unconditional normal hit launcher in 3B. 3B also puts you into an aerial stance, quite similar to Noctis' down forward 2 in Tekken, where you have a lot of options for your combos. And at 24 frames you gain access to 4BBB, which should basically be considered a launcher with the 66 damage and the knockdown that you get from it. It also has a ton of ring out potential with good ring out or carry, as well as being able to ring out over low walls. It's on the slow side, but it has great range, so use it as your high reward with Punisher. One of the ways that they kept 2B fairly beginner friendly is to keep her punishment options pretty consistent between standing and while rising. Her while rising KK is exactly the same in every way as her free KK from standing, apart from the fact that it's 12 frames. As it starts with a 4 input, you still have access to 4K from crouching, so this is still a very strong option when blocking a -16 move. 4K hold depending on whether you have the lethal hit, whether you want the analysis points, or whether you want the knockdown, the extra damage, and the potential for a ring out and a wall splat. However, you do also have access to while rising B at 16 frames, which does quite a bit more damage at 38, and it also has a lot more range and gives you a nice knockdown. This is an example of one of 2B's block punishment options that definitely isn't suffering from range, as you can see here. As I just mentioned, you still have access to moves that start with a 4 notation, so 4A will still work, and if you have 2 bars of meter, will be a lethal hit launcher that doesn't spend any resources. From crouch in Soulcalibur you also have access to moves that start with a 6 in the notation. So 6BK and all of the options that come with it are also still viable, taking your pick between the analysis point, the lethal hit launcher if you have enough analysis points, or the knockdown with ring out and wall splat potential. And then we skip all the way up to 24 frames and we go back to 4BBB. A notable low that this will punish is as well as axe low, and it's definitely worth getting used to punishing this move with 4BB, as it is optimal if you don't have access to any of the lethal hits we've mentioned before. And that brings us to the end of this day 1 block punishment guide for 2B in Soulcalibur 6. If you enjoyed this and are looking forward to seeing more 2B content, or just any content that I make for Soulcalibur 6 and Tekken 7, then please like, comment and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Recently I started Twitter and I have been posting a lot of the little pieces of information and combo ideas and other tech that I find that I'm not quite making a full video out of yet on Twitter, so you can find the link to my profile in the description if you're interested. Thanks a lot guys, I'll see you all soon.